One special guest that I'd like to introduce you to, who will join me here on the stage now, is Kathi Vidal, who is the director of the U.S. Patent and Trademark Office and the Undersecretary of Commerce for Intellectual Property. And you may have seen through the sides, we're going to do a bit of a fireside chat. And while Kathi is joining, the director Vidal is joining me here on stage, I'd like to just give you a little bit about her background. She grew up in a career military family, which I can say personally I know, having I'm married to a veteran, and it's a lot of work to be part of a family that supports our careers, and so it tends to mean you move around quite a bit, and a lot of other things associated with that if you're not familiar. But that's the start of her life, and her interest in science led her to attend Binghamton University at the age of 16. So not too many of us start that early, but very impressive. She received her bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. Hopefully there's some electrical engineers out there. Make some noise a little bit, right? All right. Thank you. There you go, some colleagues. And you can show yourselves, that's all right. Before graduating, she started her career at GE Aerospace. That became Lockheed Martin later. And she was selected into the Edison Engineering Program. And for those who may not know, that is also a very prestigious program in GE that focuses and helps to develop the careers of people in engineering. And she pursued her master's in electrical engineering at Syracuse University. And during her time at GE, she designed one of the first artificial intelligence systems for aircraft, as well as aircraft and engine control systems that continue to keep our military safe today. So very impressive, and as a result of her awareness and knowledge of innovation, she recognized that value, and Director Vidal pursued a career in IP. So, and she actually went to law school and obtained a JD from University of Pennsylvania, which is in my home state. So I'm really pleased to have you here, Director, and maybe I'll close by saying before we start that she has championed, as you've seen from our strategic priorities, championed a number of mentoring and expanded opportunities for individuals in underserved communities and for expanding out leadership in IP. So very happy to have you here, Director. Yep. Thank you. All right, I'll make sure, yep, we're good. Thank you very much to the AV folks, right? I do want to say, Director, we have had such an outpouring of interest of questions for you that I can tell you there are way too many for me to be able to ask, but I will try to go through as many as I can, and but we're eager to hear from you, so thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
So I understand, just so that everybody's aware too, this won't be the only time that we'll hear from Director Vidal. She is also participating and she's moderating at a panel this afternoon on increasing diversity in an innovation pledge. So you'll also have the opportunity to hear from her too. Please take a look at the app, that'll tell you when that is, yeah. And, okay, so in terms of getting started here, I'm going to jump right into it, if that's okay,
That's
Director.
fantastic.
Yep. All right. So can you share with us a little bit about your perspective on the biggest challenges that you see the USPTO and the IP system overall facing, and maybe some of your perspective on significant opportunities that we have to promote innovation in the world and for the US?
So I appreciate that question. It's something that I think about every day when I wake up, and I could not have expressed it better than Henry did in terms of the work we have to do. There is so much work to do, and we need to do it quickly, and we need to do it together. And so in terms of our challenges, it's everything from making sure that we solve for all the things that Henry mentioned, as well as that we do it together, and that we consider Carl's empathy when we do it, and think not only about our own self-interest and about our own company's self-interest, but also about what's good for the country. In terms of opportunity, in addition to doing all that, we need to get everybody off the bench and into the game. We need to make sure that we really double down on inclusive innovation. It's our ticket to economic prosperity. There's evidence that shows that if we quadruple the number of inventors, we will raise GDP by $1 trillion. And that doesn't even address the world problems we can solve by doing so.
Thank you very much for highlighting that, Director. I think you've heard that here, and I hopefully you will hear thematically some of those very same messages throughout this conference. Thank you. One of the things that I think has been mentioned before, either from yesterday or some of the panels that you may have heard from in the past with IPO, is that we all often have a range of viewpoints on IP policy, and that's pretty typical for us. We are a large, we call ourselves a Big Ten organization, but one thing that most of us converge on is the need and the continued interest in quality patents, right? So we'd love to hear your thoughts about whether there are some mechanisms that exist or ones that we can continue to build on to improve and continue to strengthen rigor and thoroughness of examinations and quality.
So I appreciate that question. It is something that I am keenly focused on. I will say, again, not to mention Henry in every single answer that I give, but...
That's all right, he won't mind.
I appreciate that Henry thanked the public servants. I just had a recent meeting with the PPAC, and I spoke to somebody who's rotating off of PPAC who suggested that the PPAC term be limited to one term. And that's because he said, until you have insight into the USPTO, you have no idea how competent, how passionate all of the employees of the USPTO are, all of the examiners. I've had the pleasure over the last few months of meeting with so many people through the USPTO through listening sessions. I've been using my lunch hour to meet with people in groups throughout the entire organization. And I will say that we are solving the issue on how to have more robust and reliable IP rights together. I recently issued a blog on how you can all collaborate with us in terms of training. The examiners need you to reach out, to come into the USPTO either live or virtually and provide training, whether it's technical training, whether it's training on the law. They want to get out and see your facilities and see the great work that they do in action. As you can imagine, we all perform our best when we can really connect to the work that we do. In addition to that, we're going to be issuing some RFCs shortly related to robust and reliable patent rights. The first ties into the letter that I sent to Commissioner Califf at the FDA and addresses some of the ideas in that letter that aren't focused just on the pharmaceutical industry, but robust and reliable patents generally. We'll have a follow-up one that will address additional aspects of robust and reliable patents, in particular 112F. We are also looking at issuing guidelines to create a more concrete record, a more specific prosecution record that can be used in litigation and licensing, et cetera. I'm bringing on academics to help with some of that. The first project we're working on is related to the interview summaries and reasons for allowance to make those much more robust so that they can be relied upon. We are also working on 112 guidance and on 103 guidance. That's guidance that would apply both to the examiners and to the PTAB. And we're doing so much more. I could just keep going, but then we'll exhaust the time. So I think those are some of the highlights, and I will just pause there for the next question.
No, I think your audience here will be very pleased to hear all of that. Thank you very much. Another thing that I think we've enjoyed are also, you posted recently, Director, in a blog that talked about stats on examiner actions relating to 101. And I'll stick with the patent theme for just a little bit, but please know we'll move to other parts of IP as well. But on 101, that too is a topic that many of our constituents are really, and our membership is really interested in. And in it, you mentioned the timing of the 101 analysis and probably some other thoughts even around listening and collecting stakeholder feedback. Just love to hear some of your reflections on 101 as well.
101 is clearly something that we need to address and need to fix. And so part of what we're doing is working with Congress on that, because it will take congressional action to make this happen. Certainly, we also are looking for any opportunity in the courts to make positive progress when it comes to 101 so that it's more certain and clear what is and is not patent eligible. And as you know, we've also solicited feedback from the public on our 101 guidance. Part of that is just, it's time to refresh. After a number of years, it was 2019, we issued the last guidance. Also want to provide more examples because the courts, as you know, benefit from those, and pattern recognition as to where does this case fall with regard to others. And so we're doing what we can on that. We're studying other systems throughout the world in terms of the criteria they use for patent eligibility, and are doing everything we can to move that forward. It's interesting, I just wrote an article that's not yet published for AIPLA's 50-year anniversary, and I went back and read the article, the first edition, and at that time the country was having the same issues around 103. So we've come a long way, and we're solving the same problems, but it's now shifted from 103 to 101. But I'm confident we're gonna get there, and I just hope we can do it sooner rather than later.
Thank you, and I think we're very appreciative of the attention, right, that you've put on it, because we see that already, and I know for those of you that are IPO members, I mean, we know and we see this, and we continue to track it. Thank you. So shifting gears a little bit to the trademark side. We also appreciate the office's efforts to protect the trademark registration program, and I'm going to try to condense a couple of questions that we had received to pose to you. You had given some comments at a recent Trademark Public Advisory Committee, so it's our TPAC, and you talked about eliminating systemic abuses. It was one of your goals, and also the Go for Real program on anti-counterfeit, to advance anti-counterfeiting. So we'd just love to once again hear from you on these topics. It's just an open-ended question about what you'd like to do to continue to support that area.
So I appreciate that, and that's another one of my focuses that I started from day one. You know, it's critically important that we not only have robust and reliable rights, but that those are enforced, and that we curb the dialogue and behavior around counterfeiting and piracy. So you mentioned some of the things that we're working on. Certainly we did launch the next Go for Real campaign. This is not just an issue in the US, it's also an issue across the globe. So we're working with other countries to help them also deal with these types of issues, including enforcement and education. So for example, we also launched Go for Real in Mexico, or Mexico launched it in Spanish, so that was a very positive result. I just came back on Friday from Asia, from Singapore, Thailand, Laos, Malaysia, and Vietnam, talking to the governments there and the IP offices about how we can strengthen IP in those countries, what they're trying to do around counterfeiting, and seeing how we can better support them. Came back with a lot of great ideas. Some of you in the audience may have gotten emails while I was gone, because I'm having many follow-up conversations related to that, including how platforms and others can play a more active role. I will say in terms of trademarks, because there was a lot to your question, that I'm really glad we have the Trademark Modernization Act. It's not the full solution. It takes a lot. It's a one-on-one expungement. It's not going to solve everything. I am hearing from stakeholders on how I may be a catalyst, or I can be used as a catalyst to try and reach out to different organizations to see whether certain procedures can be streamlined in some ways. You know, right now, takedown notices, you have to do it company by company. All the procedures are different. It's very difficult for small to medium-sized enterprises to go through that process. I'd love to have dialogue about that. You know, beyond that, there's just so much we can do, whether it's hearing the abuses that you're seeing and using that as part of our input process when it comes to sanctions and investigations. So please dialogue with us on that. We did open a new Engage the Director webpage, so that if you're not meeting with me as part of the listening sessions, which we're still doing, you can engage with me at any time. It goes directly into my inbox, into a special part of my inbox, and I review the comments weekly. So if you have any ideas on how we can do better, please let me know.
Yeah, that's a great offer too. I mean, I know that there's been, with the outpouring of questions that we've had, I know that there'd probably be no shortage of that too. So thank you for extending that for us. So once again, now I'll move to another area. So you announced earlier this year that the USPTO will be reviewing the guidelines for examination of design patent applications for computer-generated icons. We're eager to hear any update that you're able to share with us on the status of your work in this space too.
So I appreciate that, and I will just take that up a level, that I really see design protection as its own protection. I know Valencia here agrees with me. She's in the third row there and leads our design group. it's really important that we focus on it separate and apart from utility patents and from trademarks. And so we are working across the board with that in mind, including rethinking the way we organize within the USPTO, bringing in an expert who can help, as I mentioned, we're bringing in experts from colleges, different professors to help with guidelines. We're also working on doing the same when it comes to design protection. We also meet regularly to discuss how we can shape the work we do at the USPTO absent congressional action when it comes to articles of manufacture. And then obviously we also will interface with Congress on that as well. We need to make sure that our IP protection, including design protection, keeps up with technology. We're looking at what other countries are doing in that regard, and when I go to the different countries, we dialogue on that as well. So there's a lot that needs to be done. There's a lot of debate and dialogue, which I really appreciate at the USPTO in terms of what we actually can do right now, and we're looking to push the boundary as much as possible on what we can do while not stepping over it. So stay tuned on that. It's something that we're in a deliberative process right now.
Oh, that's great. That's great. I know that means a lot for us as well. So a few times now you mentioned the training for patent examiners, and I know that both AIPLA and IPO are both interested in helping there. Is there anything that you'd like to share with respect to how IPO could help specifically, or membership?
Well, and I appreciate that, and I appreciate everybody who's here today and all of you who've engaged with me on these issues. I've been in regular contact, as you know, with IPO. We talk regularly. We're working on solving issues together. I appreciate all the people, all the companies that IPO brings together. And one of the first things I did, I think it was maybe even week one, I reached out to IPO and AIPLA to see how we could collaborate more. That was in response to one of our patent examiners asking me if I could give a training session on lessons that I learned through litigation and how examiners might do an even better job of creating a clear record for litigation and other purposes. I loved the invitation, and I thought, I'm one person. This is the way I always look at it. Like, let's get a broader group of stakeholders involved in solving for this. So, and we've had great discussions not only on what is the benefit, but telling the positive stories on how a great, clear record has helped with licensing negotiations, has helped in litigation, whether it's through resolving cases early and efficiently or in the right way. So very much look forward to collaborating with IPO and AIPLA on this. I know there was something in my inbox from 2 days ago that I need to respond to with some thoughts on how this might take shape. So very much appreciate that.
That's great, Director. I know I say this also for both our members, but also our non-members too. This is just for us, it is another benefit to being part of our organization, is to be able to channel that to you. So thank you for that. So, I'm shifting gears on you again. What do you see as some of the biggest threats to the U.S. IP abroad, and any actions that you feel the USPTO can take to help protect U.S. IP?
So I think it's twofold, and the more I meet with countries, so I met with the recent Asian countries, as I mentioned, and then in Geneva I met with 26, 30, something like that, other countries. And what I'm learning is one of the biggest challenges, obviously part of the challenge is for all the countries to develop an extremely strong IP infrastructure. And they're all working to do that. There is capacity building issues, so we've collaborated with countries on doing an examiner exchange where we send some examiners to them, they send some to us, we cross-train. That's been very impactful. In addition to that, we offer training on examination. So that's part of it. The other part of it is the enforcement part. And that is where we're seeing some real issues, because regardless of whether you have IP, I mean, first of all, we need to get IP quickly. All of our companies need to get IP more quickly in some of these other countries, but we also need to make sure that when we get it, it's enforceable. So that's another mechanism where we're working with other countries on how to improve that, on how to help them dialogue with their own governments, on how to, the value of IP, why enforcement is important for investment into their countries, and just generally trying to elevate IP as something that's critical to their economies, to GDP, et cetera.
That's tremendous. I think it really aligns with a lot of what IPO's initiatives and outreach is same. I'm going to switch gears one more time, and I'd like to talk a little bit about our shared goal that we have in IPO, and I know that you do as well, of increasing diversity within the IP ecosystem. I'd like to just drop a quick footnote here. You know, one of the things that's a real testament to someone's character is when people compliment or they've got things that they can share from a person's past, have no motivation to necessarily share those things. And I had the good fortune some time ago to meet someone who's from your past here in California.
Like I'm on one of those game shows or something.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm not going to bring anybody out from the side or anything like that, but I will say, just what a wonderful compliment that was paid with respect to our director here on her drive for changing and continuing down the diversity path for careers. And it really struck me that these are just things that are said that happen in the background, and I know that we have not had a chance to let you talk here on this yet, but I can say already from several sources, many of us have heard about your efforts on this front from a personal perspective. So I want to thank you on behalf of those that aren't here right now, to be able to tell you how much that means to us, and we see the challenge that we have, but it's something that we're really proud and pleased to have in this director's position as well from you. So with that, you know, we're delighted to have you here and in this role from IPO's side. But we'd love to also hear efforts that you have in participation by women, people of color, veterans, LGBTQ individuals, and other underserved communities in the patent system and in the other areas of IP that USPTO is serving. Yeah.
Well, and I appreciate that. It's a big focus, and I was delighted to hear that it's a big focus not only in the US, but in other countries as well. Most every country I meet with is trying to figure out how to foster more innovation, including from those who are traditionally underrepresented in the innovation ecosystem. They realize that it is a national imperative for these countries. Some could say it's a moral imperative, but regardless of that, it's definitely a national imperative, not only for those countries, but from ours. And you know, certainly I gave the statistic about increasing the number of vendors and how that impacts GDP. I will say pro bono is really top of mind for me, that it's the real opportunity to get out there and support inventors who don't otherwise have access. On Saturday, I was over at a local high school where there was a group of children. I guess they're maybe a little bit older than that now. They're now in college, but when they were in high school, they invented a device that helps with diabetes. It's a device you put on your feet, and it helps detect certain symptoms of diabetes that could exacerbate if not detected. And this group was mostly women. There were 6 countries represented, mostly first-generation Americans. And when they spoke about their invention and about what it took to get there, it was very clear that if it wasn't for the pro bono services that were offered through one of Microsoft's programs, and if it wasn't for the Lemelson Foundation and the work they did with the school, they never would have gotten the patent. They never would have had access to the innovation ecosystem. And when we provide those pro bono services, we reach many more people. So for example, the percent of women on US patents is about 12%. When we provide legal services at no charge, we find that number jumps from 12% to 41%. That is a huge jump. That shows you that the innovators are out there and we just need to reach them where they are. Just to give you a few other statistics, 41% women, 30% African American, 14% Hispanic, 5.6% Asian American, and 1.5% Native American. These are people who have great ideas. They have empathetic ideas on how to help solve things like diabetes, and all they really need is for us to reach out. I will, just as a quick plug, we created these little postcards, and you will find them in the hallway with a QR code on the back. If you want to get more involved, and please do, in our pro bono activities, you can just scan the QR code with your phone and connect up with us. The USPTO has put more money behind this, more power behind this in terms of our 21 pro bono organizations that cover the entire country. So that is a huge effort of ours. I will pause on this because I hope you will join us later in the day. I'm grateful to be able to speak on the panel relating to DEIA later today. I will disclose then many more of the things that we're doing, so you'll have to stay tuned for that.
Awesome. All right, there's a teaser for the, for the next panel. And Director, I just want to thank you on behalf of IPO and our membership here that's watching today. Thank you, because these efforts have been really because of your leadership as well. So, so we're looking forward to checking out those cards and the QR code and the opportunities that you said to be out here and available to us later. I know that I could ask many more questions that were on this list here, but I think we'll close here to just share. Thank you so much for your time once again, for the leadership that you're already displaying and the track you're sending us on here, whether it's with diversity or the other topics that we talked about today. Very appreciative to have your time and that you traveled here to be with us. So thank you very much once again, Director.
Thank you.